All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are breaking down a really powerful, and I mean practical, framework for finding some emotional balance day to day. And this all comes straight from the text of Step 10, giving us a guide for self-reflection that you can start using, well, like right now.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever woken up in the morning just feeling off? Not from anything you drank, but from all the emotional junk from the day before? That lingering anger or resentment or fear that just spills over and kind of ruins your whole morning?
Well, the source material has the perfect name for this, the emotional hangover. I love that because it just perfectly nails the problem we're trying to solve. See, just like a real hangover, these excesses of negative emotion, they stop us from living well today. The point isn't to get stuck dwelling on the past, but to have a way to deal with this stuff now.
So what's the fix? Well, the text frames it as an adventure in a new life, which sounds a lot better than a chore, right? The big idea here is that this continuous self-searching, looking at our own good stuff and not so good stuff, just becomes a regular habit. And that's what helps us live with some real purpose, no matter what craziness the day throws at us.
So to make this really practical, you can think of it like a toolkit for checking in with yourself. The principle behind every tool is exactly the same. It's all about honest self-appraisal, but the timing and how you use them are a little different. Let's take a look at the three main tools in our kit.
So the toolkit has three main inventories. There's the spot check for when you're upset right in the moment. Then you've got the day's end review and a deeper periodic house cleaning. For today, we're going to focus on the first two because they are the absolute must-haves for your daily practice. All right, our first tool is all about mastering the moment. The spot check inventory is your go-to for when you feel those stormy emotions starting to bubble up and you need to get your balance back, like right then and there. Now, the principle here is pretty radical. It says that whenever we're disturbed, no matter what caused it, the first place we need to look isn't out there, it's in here. It's a game changer because it immediately flips the script and puts the power right back in our own hands. Let's take anger, for example. The old way is to indulge in it, especially when it feels justified, right? But the source calls this an emotional dry bender that can completely wreck your day. The new way is to practice self-restraint, to prioritize our own emotional balance over that fleeting satisfaction of being right. So how does it actually work? Well, the process is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. First, you recognize the emotional trap. Then, you pause to sidestep it. You bite your tongue, you put down the pen, and then, once you've cooled down a bit, you analyze the situation. That pause, that's the secret ingredient. That's what changes everything. But here's something you might not expect. This inventory isn't just for when you're feeling bad. It's just as important when things are going great. The old way might be to get puffed up, to play the big shot. The new way requires what's called special vigilance, checking that pride by remembering that any success we have isn't just because of us. It's about practicing gratitude to avoid what the text hilariously calls big shotism.
Okay, so that's how we handle things in the heat of the moment. Now let's zoom out to the bigger picture with our second tool, the daily review. The source material suggests we treat this like a little financial balance sheet we draw up at the end of each day.
So the idea is to look at your day like a balance sheet. On one side, you list your assets, good intentions, things you did right, and on the other side, you list your liabilities, prideful actions, fearful thoughts. The goal is just an honest look at both sides of the ledger. No judgment, just awareness. Now, this is crucial, so listen up. Did you notice how times we tried hard, even if we failed, is listed as a credit, as an asset? The text makes a really profound point here. The pain from our failures, when we're willing to look at it honestly, actually gets converted into an asset. That pain becomes the very thing that helps us grow tomorrow.
This all sounds pretty straightforward, but here's where it gets a little tricky. It's pretty easy to see when we've had a big outburst of anger, but what about the more subtle stuff? What were our true motives behind our actions, even the ones that looked good on the surface?
This brings us to our old friend, rationalization. And the text gives some seriously sharp examples. We call it constructive criticism when what we really want is to win the argument, or teaching a lesson when we actually just want to punish someone. Learning to spot these hidden motives, that, the source says, is the real heart of building character.
So, where does all this daily work actually lead? This isn't just about endlessly picking apart our faults. The ultimate goal of this consistent daily practice is a huge shift in our whole outlook on life.
a shift away from all that emotional chaos and toward a state of genuine serenity.
And a massive part of that shift is finding true tolerance. Because when we consistently see our own flaws, we start to realize that, well, pretty much everyone is emotionally imperfect in some way. We start to see that other people, just like us, are struggling. And that insight, that's what builds real empathy and love for the people around us.
So what does this look like in the real world? The text gives us these 4 keynotes. And these aren't just, nice ideas. They're the practical, hands-on principles we can use to guide how we interact with people every single day. They are the direct result of doing this internal work.
Ultimately, as we close out our little balance sheet each night, these are the permanent assets we're trying to build. Not money, not status, but an honest regret for any harm we've done, a genuine gratitude for the good things we have, and just a solid willingness to try to do a little better tomorrow.
And that brings us to the end. The goal here wasn't just to talk about a concept, but to give you a real, practical tool for living. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Looking back on your days so far, what's the first credit or debit you'd put on your personal balance sheet?